Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Tesha and I'm the owner of the Cajun Girl Patterns. Today I'm going to do a sew along about how to make a diaper stacker sewing pattern. I'm not going to cover every step in the pattern. You want to go ahead and print off, depending on which view you're making, print off your pattern pieces and get them all taped together using the diagram, and I'll meet you back here. As I mentioned earlier, there are a few steps that I'm not going to cover in this video tutorial. One step that I'm not going to cover is how to make the top piece for view B, also the cutting layout, and other, taping the pattern pieces together. But please, if you have any questions about any of those steps, please contact me. My contact information is on every page of the sewing pattern. So if you have any issues, please feel free to reach out. I wanted to make this video of specific steps that I get lots of questions about and that people seem to have a little bit more trouble with. But any question you have, I'm happy to help. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you'll need if you're making view A is you'll need piece 1, the body piece, which is piece 2, and piece 3, which is your bottom. All of those pieces need to be cut out. All of the pattern pieces are cut on the fold, so go ahead and cut those out. If you're making view B, you need this square top piece 1. You need the same body piece, the large body piece 2. You need the bottom piece, which is piece 3, and piece 4, which are the ties. So go ahead and cut all those out from your fabric, and I will meet you back here. So we'll start sewing. Also for A, you're going to need bias tape, either prepackaged or handmade. I actually made this, but either one will do. All right, so go ahead and get all of your pieces cut out, and I'll meet you back here. Now that we have all the pieces cut out, I'm going to go over a few things about each piece. So the bottom piece, we have one cut out here. And it's pretty much cut out and ready to go. It doesn't need any markings, so you can set that to the side. For piece 1, there's a small dot at the top. You should go ahead and mark that on your back piece. So there's 2 pieces, one's going to be a front, one's going to be a back of your top. Go ahead and put a dot on your back piece and mark all the way through on both sides. Okay, now the body has a lot of markings, and I'm going to go over that in a little more detail now. Okay, here we have the body piece. It's one piece that's been cut on the fold. And you see there are several marking lines that need to be marked. And also there's cutting lines. You have to cut a 1/2 inch slit in the bottom. So I'm going to show you an easy way to mark the bottom. You can go ahead and cut the slit in the bottom before you start marking. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and cut a 1/2 inch slit on those little red marks into the pattern piece through both folds. Okay, so see, it's cut and it's ready to go. Okay, so now in order to mark the body piece, you can certainly trace it through, but I'm going to show you an easier way to do it. So let me just move this up, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my fabric. Okay. Now, if you notice, let me show you. We made the cut, and now the first pleat mark is going to be 6 inches from this side. Let me move this so you can see it. So this is the center front. The center back was cut on the fold. Okay, so here we are. We're going to measure 6 inches in, and that should take you right down to where you split it. So the first pleat mark should have that 1/2 inch cut. And I'm going to mark it with pen, but obviously you would want to mark it with something that you can wash off. I just want to make sure that we can see it on the video. Okay, so that's 6 inches in. And then the fold line is going to be measured. I hope you can see that line. the fold line, which is the dotted line on the pattern, is going to be 2 inches in from that line. So 8 inches from the center front, 6 inches from the first pleat line. So I'm going to indicate that with a sort of dotted line to reflect the pattern. I'm hoping that that's visible. Okay, and then the next pleat mark will be 2 inches from that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Okay, so now that is one side of the pleat that has been completely marked. And now we're going to continue. So when you're folding, it'll look something like that. That's only 1/2 of the pleat. So we're going to keep going. Another 2 inches from this last line. We're going to put our dotted line, which represents the fold. And then another 2 inches out from that. Get it all straight. The last mark of the pleat. Okay, so now we have the whole pleat marked. Okay, so these outside edges have the slits. See that? And then we have the folds here, and they fold to that center line, just like that. Okay, so that's one side. The body has 2 sides. So you're going to go ahead and do the same thing on this other side, starting at the center front, just like you would on the pattern piece here. Center front, it should line up with the slits. It's 6 inches and then every 2 inches out to mark your piece. So go ahead and finish marking the other side, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so here we have the top piece for view A of the diaper stacker. This will be the back piece. This will be the front piece. You should have 2 pieces. On the back piece, there's 2 dots, and you need to go ahead and turn under between the dots 1/8 of an inch, and then another 1/8 of an inch, and you'll make a little tiny hem right in the very back. And then you're going to stitch with a straight stitch right between those dots. Okay? And when you're done stitching, it's going to look like this. You see how it's kind of stitched under. I tried to use black thread so you could see it. And then you have some little tails hanging out, and they're all the raw edges. That is where the hanger will be inserted in the top of the diaper stacker. Okay, now to complete the top piece of the diaper stacker, this is for view A. So I have the front piece and the back piece. The back piece has the hem at the back. And now we're going to apply the bias tape. So make sure that the pieces are right side out. Remember that this piece has no seam allowance, so we're going to finish it with bias tape. So this is a bias tape that I actually made, but you can get the pre-packaged ones. They work just as well. And what you're going to do is you're going to start by putting this inside. I always put the short edge up. And I'm going to go ahead and pin. And you're going to do that all the way around. Let me show you. So you would keep pinning and putting it inside, but I want to show you how to do this back piece. So what you're going to do is you're going to pinch around the front, and then you're just going to keep putting the bias tape on the front only. So it's going to kind of go like this, and you leave out that hemmed edge as you sew. And then when you sew it, you sew around and you leave that hemmed edge out and catch it and keep coming back around. So let me go ahead and pin it, and then I'll show you again what it looks like. Okay, now I have the top piece with the bias tape all all pinned. I have a little bit, I haven't cut it. I'll go ahead and trim it after I sew it. But as you can see, as it comes around to this top, and I put pins in these two spots so I know this is where the gap is that I'm only going to be sewing on the front. You can see that I have it pinned with the hemmed edge coming out. So that makes a little hole. And I just am applying bias tape to the front at this point, and it makes a little hole for the hanger. So what you want to do now is go ahead and stitch around the whole bias tape, leaving that little notch out. And then we will continue to the next step. Okay, so I just finished stitching the top, and you can see I have the little pocket here with the bias tape laying across it. It's all stitched and finished. And now I'm going to go ahead and trim my bias tape. Okay. And then I want to double check this measurement across the bottom. So let's see. It needs to be exactly 12 inches, which it is. And that's very, very important. If you have any wiggle room, you need to go back and check your bias tape and make sure that the ends are all the way pushed in to the side. This needs to be 12 inches. Okay. The next thing we're going to start sewing is the bodice piece. Okay, so at this point, if you want to go ahead and check, I finished the top of the diaper stacker. I have my hanger, the swivel top that's recommended. If you wanted to go ahead and check that now to make sure everything fits, that your hanger is going to work, it's a good time to do it. Let me go ahead and pull this through. All right, so here we go. So here's the diaper stacker. I have these hangers for sale. They fit perfectly inside the top of the diaper stacker if you wanted to get this. But any sort of baby swivel top hanger will work. I used to get them from a local store. They would come with my kids' clothes, and it'll certainly work. So go ahead and double check and make sure that it fits before you continue on. Hi, welcome back. So at this point, you should have view A, top piece completed, and the view B, top piece completed. So now we're going to move on to piece 2, which is the body, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you how to make the pleats and get those ready. Okay, so let's move down. So this is the body piece, and it's very long. So let's work on one pleat. I marked this on the wrong side of the fabric, but the pleat actually goes the other way, and the instructions show you how to pleat it on the right side, but I didn't want to put permanent marks on the right side of the fabric. So here's how we're going to do it from the wrong side. So this is the middle of the pleat, and these are the fold lines. And the bottom, remember the bottom has the slits that you cut from the previous instructions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and fold on the dotted fold line and take and match the solid line in the middle. Okay, and then you're going to do that on the other side at this fold line and fold it in. And of course you want to get it nice and straight and even, and this should be 4 inches wide. Okay, let me kind of pin it and flip it over so you can kind of see what it looks like on the other side. Okay, it's not exactly straight. You want to take time and really get it nice and straight. So on this side, you can see you've created a pleat. And then this will have 2 inches of fabric underneath here. Each one of these is 2 inches, and the pleat across the back will be 4 inches. So let me go ahead and get it all pressed, and I'll do that on both sides, and then I'll show you more details. Okay. So here we have the pleat. I have it pressed, so it'll be a lot easier to see how it folds. So here's the dotted line, which is the fold line, and you can see that the fold line comes in and the two solid lines match. This is the middle center line. Here's the other folded line. And you can see how they come together. This should be 4 inches on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, and then you do the same thing on this side. So you pull it in, and then you have a nice finished piece. Now what I'm going to do before I go ahead and baste these top stitches, remember, don't baste the bottom. The bottom is going to be open, so leave the bottom open, but you can go ahead and baste this. And I'm also going to add the bias tape to the center front pieces. So here, I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and you sew on the short side. You know, put these in there, and I'm going to go ahead and sew this down on both center front pieces, so this one and this side. I'm going to go ahead and sew those on, and I'm going to baste the top of my pleats, just that 4-inch section. Okay, so here we are with the center front section. To apply the bias tape, you're just going to open it all the way out and place the raw edge inside the bias tape and sandwich it in there. And then you're going to stitch it down, and it gives you a nice finished edge. Now remember, if you're not adding bias tape to these center front sections, you're going to have to extend the center front sections. There's no seam allowance on this piece. That's why it's finished with the bias tape. I have instructions on my blog on how to actually extend it if you don't want to use bias tape and you want to actually hem it under. Because if you just take this and hem it under, it's going to be short. So go ahead and look at the instructions online if you want to do something different. I also have the different instructions for this, where you can extend this out and sew to the dots. All of that is on my website, thecajungirl.com, if you want to check that out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew this on and baste these pleats, and then we will head to the next step. Okay, we're moving right along here. So now I have the bias tape sewn on the body piece, and I have the pleats basted at the top. Remember, the bottom needs to remain open, but I went ahead and pressed them all the way down. So let's leave them closed for now. Okay, now with the right side up of the body piece, you're going to add the top piece. And make sure the back is on the back. And the top piece should fit in between and hit the pleats, the center of the pleats. And this is the case as well for view B. So if you have the square top, it should be 12 inches and it should fit in between these pleats just as this top piece does. Okay, so let's go ahead and center that. And the edges should fall in the center, and then you're going to take and you're going to fold this part at the center of the pleat all the way over. Okay, so this is going to fold. This 2 inches should be folded, 2 inches in the front, 2 inches in the back, and this is your center front piece. And so does this side, the same way, should fold, and they should meet right in the middle. Okay, now what you're going to do, let me go ahead and just put a pin in this on each side. I'm going to go ahead and pin through all of it, just so I can save some time here. Okay, so now it's pinned, and what you're going to do is you're going to stitch, so a 1/2 inch across here. Let me see if I can get this closer. So what you're going to do is measure a 1/2 inch down and stitch from this side a 1/2 inch in. Okay, through all the layers, front to back, thickness just on the side here. Okay, so 1/2 inch. Let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, now I have my little notches sewn on each side through the entire thickness, front, back, body piece, everything. Those are all done. Now what you do is you're going to sew the back top piece to the back. So this is the back top piece and this is the back of the body. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and line these up, and you're going to sew beginning right here at this side notch all the way around to the other side notch. Okay? Then you're going to do the same thing with the front. You're going to line this up and you're going to stitch starting at the notch, and you're going to stitch just the front to this notch over here. Okay, so the notches on the side give it the side pleat, and you want to sew the top to the top piece to the back and the front piece to the front. Okay, now I'm going to sew the side notches, and I noticed that my top string needs to be underneath, and since I have a walking foot, I can't pull the top thread through or under the presser foot, so I'll show you a little trick. I took this scrap piece of fabric, and you sort of plant your needle and pull it up, and then that's a good way to pull the thread under. So now it's underneath my presser foot where it needs to be. So now to sew, I'm going to do the back first, and I'm going to sew it so that it's open and I can access the hanger. Okay, so I'm going to take the notch, see the notch is sticking up, and I'm going to put that 90 or perpendicular to the plate, to the sewing plate. I'm going to go ahead and push it down, and that's where I'm going to start my stitches, right at the base of that notch. Okay, so I'm going to start my stitches going towards the back. So let's start a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Let me get that. Okay, and then I'm going to sew all of this until I get to the notch on the other side. So let me get all of this all together. Okay. A walking foot definitely helps if you have one. I love mine. I just leave it on my machine now. And then you're going to sew, I don't know if you can see in the video, the notch is right here, and I'm sewing all the way through the side of the pleat until you get to that notch, back stitching, and then, okay, and then we're going to do the front the same way. So we're going to start at this notch and sew all along the front, sewing the top piece to the bodice piece front. So I'm going to do that in the same way, and then I'll show you how to put the bottom on. Okay, I'm back, and the last step that we're going to do is put the bottom onto the diaper stacker. And I went ahead and I fused on the Peltex. That's what I'm using. I love this stuff. It's great for the bottom of bags, and I always have extra pieces of it. So this is really, really good stuff. I also have it for sale along with the hanger on my website. If you're looking to just buy a piece, I know sometimes it's frustrating to have to buy a large amount when you just need this tiny piece. But you can also use cardstock or any other really heavy cardboard to maintain the shape in the bottom. So if you are using cardboard, go ahead and cut it 7 3/4 by 11 3/4. If you're using the Peltex, you can go ahead and fuse it to the bottom or any sort of interfacing that you're using. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take, let me turn this the wrong side out. We're going to be putting right sides together. Let's see if I can move the camera so you can see. Okay. So what you're going to do is this pleat, I think I'm going to need to get a different view for this. Okay, so now as I was mentioning, this is the bottom piece with the Peltex attached right side up. What you need to do is find the center the center here, center front, center back. So you can do that by folding it in half and marking it, or fold it in half this way and sort of finding the, you know, the centers. And then what you're going to do is the center point on the side will match the center point of the pleat mark. So you see the edges that were cut. Okay, I hope you can see that in the video. So you take the corner and you align these raw edges, and then at the slit, you sort of open it up and make that little square. And so that'll be the corner. And then you're going to keep going around and line up the center front and the center back. And then you're going to do the same thing of this side pleat here. I don't know if you can see this line. The middle of the pleat will be the center of the side panel at the bottom. And then you're going to open up this square. Okay, so once you have this all aligned, all the raw edges aligned, the corners should match. What you're going to do is you're going to stitch the bottom to the body piece using a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, now I have finished sewing the bottom, and you can see the corners are sewn all the way around. The center front, the bias tape is aligned in the front, and all the corners are sewn. You can clip out these corners now if you want, just to reduce extra bulk. When you turn it, you know, just clip straight across like you do for all corners. You can trim the seam if you feel like it's too much bulk when you turn it. Whatever you need to do, you can serge the ends. Whatever you want to do. I usually trim this a little bit and then turn it right side out, and you're done. Okay, here is the completed diaper stacker with the bottom attached. You get a nice crisp corners in the front, and you can go ahead and put your diapers in. If you don't like the Peltex showing, you can always put something, you know, cover something with fabric and put it in there. But that's your basic diaper stacker. Okay, now your diaper stacker is now finished. If you have any questions or on any steps, even if I didn't cover them today in the tutorial and sew along, please reach out to me. My email address is on every page of the sewing patterns. I'd love to see the beautiful items you create, so please tag me on Instagram, message me on Facebook. If you'd like your picture included into like my brag page in the back of my sewing patterns, please just send me an email with a photo. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again.